Konnichiwa, Zero Hayabusa Yokoso. Welcome to my brand new podcast. Now, this is not the old podcast I used to have. No, this is not the Zero Hayabusa podcast. This is a brand new podcast that I'm going to do to coincide with the Call of Duty League home series. And the previous home series that just ended yesterday was the Seattle Surge home series that lasted from Friday to this past Sunday. This past Sunday being May 24th. So it was from May 23rd to the 24th as we take a look at how this event went on. Now, previously, we had seen that the Florida home series ended up a pretty interesting one. And in the end, the Atlanta FaZe were crowned the eventual champions of that home series over a pretty shocking team that surprisingly got into to most people's surprise, to me it wasn't surprising, and that was Optic Gaming Los Angeles. Would Optic's fortunes remain the same going into Seattle? Let's have a look. Now, we're not just making this all about OGLA. Even though I am a big-time Optic Gaming Los Angeles fan, I'm also a Chicago Huntsman fan due to the nostalgia there with Scump and Formal. You know, T2P used to be one of the biggest two-man groups in Optic Gaming history. So, if for those who don't know, T2P means time to pound, which in Call of Duty, since it means time to slaughter anyone in our path. So let's take a look at how day one went. It started off with a dominant 3-1 series victory from the Chicago Huntsmen over the Paris Legion, not giving the Frenchman, whose losing streak now amounts to 4 matches, a chance. And the Huntsmen having a pretty good run here because with them dropping Gunless to the bench and adding Prestini, who is the brother of Arcides. It's actually his twin brother, Arcides Alex Sanderson. His brother is Prestini, also known as Preston Sanderson. So, Prestini being added to the Huntsman roster has really has given new life to this team. It's definitely great to see. The second match was a back-and-forth battle between the London Royal Ravens and the Los Angeles Guerrillas, which went the distance, with the former ultimately taking the 3-2 victory. Ravens winning against the Guerrillas in a strange series as none of the matches were particularly close. The Ravens' victory bids good for their latest incorporation, Trey Zero Morris, whereas the Guerrillas now sit in a bottom last 12th place with a 2-10 record. Yet the Florida Mutineers home series semifinal between OGLA and Toronto was one of the best series of the season. The third match was at least equal with it, pitting Giant Killers Minnesota Rocker against Florida Finals Optic Gaming Los Angeles. Despite the latter having an impressive performance in the last event, Rocker rose up to the challenge and took a victory which included 2 nail-biting S&D round 11s, 1 victory apiece. The closing match day 1 was between the Seattle Surge, the host team, against the surging New York Subliners, which saw Enable back on the Surge's starting lineup. The change, however, would not last long, as they would bring in Pander to substitute him for the S&D. Nevertheless, for the second time, another change was made, and Enable returned to his starting position to help the Seattle squad win their only map in a 3-1 defeat to the Subliners. Highlight of the day: after losing a Game 5 Round 11 against Minnesota, Slasher into Alexer Dashi vented out his frustration against the servers, which sadly don't seem to be working as well as they should. Now, Austin Slasher Liticoat actually tweeted this. Want to know why there was a huge delay? Because I'm being forced to play on 100 plus ping because their Texas servers is conveniently unplayable. Pathetic. Someone needs to be held accountable. Now, most people, there's a lot of haters on OGLA because they're not Hex's optic. Yeah. Hex wouldn't have left the team if he knew it wasn't going to be in good hands. And with IGC CEO Ari Segal, it has actually been in pretty good hands. I mean, look at who they've got on the team now. They've got Dashi, they got TJ Halley, they've got Slasher, they have Quavo, they have Chino. And there's a rumor flying around, I'll get to that later. And their current general manager is the talent relations guy for 100 Thieves, who was part of that pivotal team that got to the CWL 2019 finale against E United, in which Slasher and Quavo were both members of. I'll get more to the whole server crap after the results of all this, because there was one tweet that TJ Halley put up, and he actually put up video where he was actually playing. He said, "You want proof?" And I'll get to how I believe him. Not just because I'm an Optic fan, but I watched the video and something wasn't right. Even Maven, one of the casters, even he said, "That's strange. That shouldn't have happened." And I'll tell you what exactly that was. Alright. Day 2, the second day of the event, brought elimination matches with it. Though two teams had the first clinched spot in the semifinals, the first match pitted the Chicago Huntsmen against the Minnesota Rucker, who were looking forward to improving their performance after a nail-biting match against OGLA. The match was a tight contest, but the Northern team couldn't bring themselves to knock down the Huntsman powerhouse, who punched their way into Sunday with a quick 3-0 sweep of the Rocker. The second match had a bit of a piquant knot to it, as Trey Zero Morris would be facing their ex-teammates from the New York squad. The Subliners, looking for their second consecutive semifinal, had to face probably the strongest London Royal Ravens team we've ever seen. The match was strictly business, and the Ravens demolished 3-0. They demolished New York 3-0 to clinch the second spot in the semis. First of the 4 elimination matches saw Optic Gaming Los Angeles up against one of the 2 European teams, Paris Legion. The former came from an enraging defeat to the Rocker on the previous day, while the latter desperately needed a win to keep their challenger status alive. However, OGLA, were having none of it, and overcame their first map loss to make quick work of the Legion and move on to the second elimination match with a 3-1 result. I tell you one thing, I think the Paris Legion are tired of seeing Optic Gaming. Because in Florida, after getting defeated by the London Royal Ravens, they dropped down to the losers bracket and beat Paris 3-0. And here we go again in Seattle. They get defeated by Minnesota, drop down to the losers bracket, and face Paris again and beat them 3-1. I think Luca, the main guy for the Paris Legion, is sick of looking at Optics green and black. I think he's getting tired of seeing OGLA. The second do or die match was the last chance host Seattle Surge had to prove they weren't done. And on the other corner of the ring stood the LA Gorillas, who looked to end the 4-0 losing streak, or the 0-4 losing streak they held against the Seattle team. Even though they say third time's a charm, fifth worked as well for the Los Angeles side, as they took a 3-1 victory to advance to the last elimination round, only a step away from their first ever semi-final. Seattle made an early exit of their own home series and now sits second from last in the CDL season standings, only above their LAG rivals. Moving on to the battles for the semifinals, Optic Gaming Los Angeles faced Minnesota Rocker in rematch from their Day 1 loss. The result, however, was everything but similar. OGLA sweeping in dominant fashion over Minnesota 3-0, despite Minnesota having an 80-point lead in the hard point. They grabbed the first semifinal spot, and the result surely cast doubts on whether the Rocker are truly the fourth best team after an uncontested Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, in no particular order, top 3 in the league, or they just struck the right keys at the beginning. The last semifinal contender would be decided between the Gorillas and New York, in which the Gorillas needed to win in order to finally reach a home series semifinal. But it ended up being no luck for them, though the Subliners proved too strong and beat them 3-1 to secure their spot in the second semifinal, and doing so for the second time this year. The LA Gorillas ended a negative 4-0 loss streak against the Surge in convincing fashion in the first elimination match, although they eventually fell to the Subliners. Now, never mind my dog barking, he never shuts up. Day 3, which is CDL Sunday, also known as Championship Sunday, kicked off with a battle between Optic Gaming Los Angeles and the London Royal Ravens, the former looking for their second consecutive final, whereas the latter aimed for their first. Even though the series was heavily stacked in favor of the Ravens after 2 dominant maps, Optic Gaming clawed back to draw the game even. However, the London team proved too strong in the Game 5 S&D and booked their spot in the final after a superb 6-1 S&D win. The second semifinals saw the Chicago Huntsmen face the New York Subliners yet again after having gone the distance with them and being denied the reverse sweep in the Chicago Home Series group stage. The Huntsmen, however, were too strong for the New York team, who fell 3-1 in a tight series. The final series was half expected. No one doubted Chicago was one of the heavy favorites, but it was equally true no one expected the Royal Ravens to get this far. There were actually a lot of people who were saying it was going to be Chicago versus Optic in the final. But the final happened between London and Chicago. It was a battle made of battles. It was the battle for the Seattle crown, true, but also the battle between Europe and North America. The battle of the twins, Scraps and Wuskin, the Marshall brothers, versus Arcides and Pristini, the Sanderson brothers. It was the battle of the Dillons, Dillon versus Envoy, and the battle of the signings, Zero versus Pristini. Unfortunately, the European squad, the Huntsmen were having, unfortunately for the European squad, the Huntsmen were having none of it, and took a convincing 3-1 victory to become the third team after Dallas and Atlanta to win a second home series. The match, however, was closer than the scoreline suggests, and if the Ravens keep up this form, they could soon find themselves among the very best of the league. So your 2020 Seattle Surge Home Series winners are the Chicago Huntsmen. A big congratulations to, first of all, Hector Hex Rodriguez for formulating one hell of a team, as well as the guys who are part of this team. We go without saying, Seth Scump Abner. We can't forget about Envoy, as well as Matthew Formal Piper, Alec Arcides Sanderson, and Preston Pristini Sanderson. They are part of the 2 home series win club. A big congratulations to the Chicago Huntsmen for a series well played. As we take a look at the bracket here, wow. You are actually seeing the bracket right now. This is brought to you by the Call of Duty League and YouTube Gaming, which I'm not sponsored by, but these are the guys who own this picture, as well as the other picture that you are about to see, which is the standings. As you see, I mean, it started off pretty good for the London Royal Ravens with a 3-2 win over the Gorillas. Subliners taking a 3-1 win over the Seattle Surge, with the Gorillas winning in the knockout match. They would go on to face the Subliners, who were swept by London, and subsequently dropped down to that knockout match, which they won. And they would end up taking on the Huntsmen, who fought through and got pretty far. Optic Gaming, though, still being a very surprising team. Many people when the season started, when they had that big, just down in the dumps slump they were having, we look at what they were able to do after they subbed in Chino for JCap, and things has just been going good for Optic Gaming, with an exception of the server problems. And I'll actually get to that in a minute as well. But moving along, here we go. This is the CDL points. And this is as I said, again, this is a picture from Call of Duty League. The CDL points presented by Game Fuel. Mountain Dew Amp Game Fuel. Some pretty good stuff. I love drinking that stuff. As you can see, the Chicago Huntsmen now are at the top with 180 points. Atlanta FaZe pushed back to second with 170. Dallas Empire in third with 150. Minnesota Rocker in fourth with 120. Florida Mutineers in fifth with 100. Sixth, London Royal Ravens with 80. Seventh, Optic LA with 70. Tied for eighth, or basically 8th and 9th, Subliners in 8th, Legion in 9th, both with 60 points. In 10th and 11th is Seattle Surge and Toronto Ultra with 40 points, and down at the very bottom is the Los Angeles Gorillas with 30. Getting to server problems. As I said, not just TJ, Hallie, and Dashi were having problems with this. One thing is they're doing these events online because of the coronavirus concerns, but I'm starting to think that it's time to go back to doing LAN events. I mean, I know it's risky to do, but hell, they could have the matches with no fans. They could still do the events with no fans. I think that would be a lot better off to do it that way. But the one thing that they can do is, you know how Call of Duty was back in the day when they were doing the MLG Pro Circuit Call of Duty matches? How they would have two teams in like separate plexiglass booths? Bring those back. You know, like soundproofing so the other team can't hear communications, but also that it also keeps the players protected. So, I mean, it's a great idea. It's a pretty good idea to do. But getting back to what TJ Hallie was saying, he was just angry, mad as hell. TJ Hallie put up a tweet after the event. And he put up a tweet after the event saying, "This is what we play on." And I'm going to try and find a way to get this video on the screen if I can. If I did, you're actually seeing it right now. But if not, I'm just going to give you a description as I am looking at it right now. Basically, what had happened was TJ Hallie had taken out one of the other team's members. Then he goes to chuck a grenade, Simtex, into what looks like bombsite B at Gunrunner. He throws it over the box. He throws it over a crate. It disappears and then ends up stuck on the crate.
Good job.
Now, I'm in the back of my head, I'm thinking, how the literal hell does that happen? He didn't throw it onto the box. He threw it over. And I'm trying to remember who it was commented on it. Actually, let's take a look at some of the comments. Yeah, Aches, he even commented and said, LMAO, what? Nade clearly above the box. Nade disappears completely. Nade stuck on box. How does that happen? I'm telling you, it is terrible on the servers. Optic Mud Dog tweeting, this is so different than what we saw on the broadcast. Clint Evans, also known as Maven, tweeted, yup, I got people giving me shit because of his POV. Like, man, that isn't what we saw, LOL. I didn't receive a single tweet until after we saw his clip. Feel for TJ. I mean, that's just crazy. I don't even know how the hell that even happened. Like, even I believe that this is a legitimate case. That Tej really has a case here. I mean, Karma tweeting feels really bad. Miles tweeting, that sucks, man. Someone else tweeting, I don't want to see anyone tell me online tournaments are legit championships ever again. Something went terribly wrong here. And as I said, if you saw the video that I shared, this is credit to TJ Halley of Optic Gaming Los Angeles. Credit goes to him for this video. I keep looking at it on repeat, and I'm like, what the literal is going on here? Like, how the hell did that nade just disappear and end up stuck to the box when he, like, go back through and watch it again. You'll see he throws over the box, it disappears and ends up on the box. How? I think people need to lay off of Tej saying that he's pissing and moaning when he's got a legitimate case here. That, like I'm still watching it in amazement as to how this actually happened. Like, what the literal hell? It makes no sense. It does not make any sense. It disappears and ends up on the box. What the hell? Literally, Tej has got a legitimate case here. So anyone who's saying that he's complaining, pissing and moaning and stuff, go watch the video. Like, watch it. Even if you have to like somehow record it and slowly watch what happens. Like, this is more controversial than what happened between FaZe and Luminosity last season. Do you remember? I did a vlog about that, talking about the controversy at CWL London when FaZe Clan actually took the control point to win the match, but it said Luminosity won. Which makes no sense. Because one of the Luminosity players just comes out of nowhere and uses Ruin's whatever it was, like a battering ram, and smacked the ground with it and killed everyone. But as the guy was sliding into the room getting set to use the battering ram on the floor, popped up. FaZe takes whatever the point was inside of the busted out church building. They were at Seaside, I think it was. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how all this transpired. how all that transpired. And then here we are, no more than a year later, and the same bullshit is going on, but instead this time around, the nade glitches. The freaking Simtex grenade glitches, disappears midair, stuck to the box, like reappears stuck to the box, and boom, kills TJ Howley. I mean, that match just, a lot of bad things happened in that match for OGLA. This is why I say they need to bring back LAN matches, even if they have to do it without fans. Like, seriously, do it without fans. You don't have to have fans there to do a LAN match. Because this online bullshit, you're getting shit like that, and it's pissing the players off. It's not just pissing the players off, it's pissing the fans off too. There's a lot of fans who are agreeing with him. But nonetheless, in the end, Chicago Huntsmen take the Seattle home series victory, and I believe the next one is the Minnesota home series. Yeah, the Minnesota Rocker home series is June 5th through 7th, which, you know, it makes no sense to me because they sort of already did have a home series, and that was the launch weekend back in January. So, yeah. So these are the teams that are going to be competing in the home series, or Minnesota Rocker home series, June 5th through the 7th. They are the Minnesota Rocker, Atlanta FaZe, Chicago Huntsmen, Dallas Empire, Florida Mutineers, Los Angeles Guerrillas, Seattle Surge, and Toronto Ultra. Alright, folks, I've been ranting and raving long enough. That is going to do it for this CDL podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to click that subscribe button. Don't forget to click that bell icon so you get notifications on when I post brand new content for each and every single one of you awesome people. And as always, peace, love, and happiness to each and every single one of you, and I will see all of you in the next video. Sayonara, matane, Zero Hayabusa, out.